Today I have highlights for children, October 1977, and a cat in my lap. Opening to the first page, we have just a table of contents, and then a poem by John Updike. October. The month is amber, gold and brown. Blue ghosts of smoke float through the town. Great V's of geese honk overhead, and maples turn a fiery red. Frost bites the lawn, the stars are slits, and a black cat's eye before she spits. At last, small witches, goblins, hags, and pirates armed with paper bags, their costumes hinged on safety pins, go haunt a night of pumpkin grins. Then we have Find the Pictures at the bottom, just to see if you can see them throughout the magazine. On this next page we have a guide for parents and teachers, just kind of what each section and editorial emphasizes for learning. Then we have a little short story called Let's Talk Things Over. Once you were so little you didn't care whether your clothes were wet or dry, clean or dirty. By now you may have grown up so much that you like to take good care of your clothes. You may be so big that you hang up your own day clothes when you go to bed, and hang up your night clothes when you get up in the morning. You might even help by washing some of your own clothes. You may feel pretty big when you can do such things for yourself, even if you are only 9 or 10. When a button comes off some part of your clothes, you may be able to sew it on by yourself and not need anybody to do it for you. The first time you proved yourself so big, you probably surprised your parents. They may not have supposed you were so grown up. When you were very little, you sometimes waded into puddles of water with your shoes on and got your shoes muddy and your feet wet. When your father or mother may have given you dry shoes and socks to put on, or you may have felt big enough to find these things yourself and even to put them on. When you were as big as that, you decided not to wade in puddles of water. You also may have wanted to wear boots when there was slush or water or mud where you had to walk. I wonder how big you were when you began to clean your own shoes, removing the mud from them and polishing them. I know a boy only 9 years old who keeps his own shoes shined. He puts his foot up on a small box in which he keeps the brush, cloth, and polish. He always spreads a newspaper under the box to keep the floor clean. One day he told his little brother, "When you get big enough to shine your own shoes, you'll be more careful where you walk and more sure to wear boots when you should." I know another boy, 12 years old, who sews buttons on his own clothes. He told me that he had learned to be more careful while playing so he wouldn't lose more buttons or have his clothing torn. I know a little girl who takes good care of all of her clothes. She helps wash and iron and mend them. This girl has worked out a good plan of her own. She keeps her good clothes looking nice by remembering to change before going out to play. She is only 10, but she is so grown up that nobody must tell her how to be careful of her clothes. She tells herself. Also, this little girl knows that good clothes cost money, and that her parents have only so much money for buying new ones. She likes to go with her parents and help buy clothes for herself. Before long, she will be buying all her clothes herself. Won't she feel grown up then? And there's a poem here called A Wish. Everything I hear or see or do or say is written in some way. In my brain, my muscles, bones, and nerves. I wish I could care about what is written there. Next we have Aloicious and the Smoky Pumpkin. It was a lovely fall day. I think I'll ask Samuel to take a walk with me, thought Aloicious as he put on his sweater and scarf. Samuel was busy in his kitchen. He was cutting a face in a big pumpkin. "Why are you doing that?" asked Aloicious as he came in the back door. "Because tomorrow is Halloween, silly," said Samuel. "I'm going to put this on my front porch to scare the goblins away." "Pish diddle," said Aloicious. "There's no such thing as goblins. Let's take a walk. Maybe we can find some hickory nuts." Samuel got a basket for the nuts, and they walked into the woods. In a little while, the widow Wanda was passing Samuel's house on her way home from the market. She had bought a pumpkin too. "My, what a beautiful Halloween pumpkin," she thought when she saw the one on Samuel's porch. "That's just how I want mine to look. I'll go ask Samuel if I may copy it." She put her pumpkin down and knocked on Samuel's door. There was no one at home. She ran down the path, across the road, and up to Aloicious's house. There was no one there either. "My goodness," she thought, "I wonder where they are. I can't carry both pumpkins at the same time, so I'll run home and get a knife and cut mine out here on the porch." She ran home, leaving her pumpkin on Samuel's porch. While she was gone, Aloicious and Samuel came home. "Look," said Aloicious, "there are 2 pumpkins on your porch. What do you think of that?" "Maybe it's a present from the widow Wanda," said Samuel. "Let's go see if she left one for you." Aloicious and Samuel scampered across the road and up the hill to Aloicious's house. There was no pumpkin there. "That's funny," said Samuel. "The widow wouldn't give me a pumpkin unless she gave you one too." "Well, no matter," said Aloicious. "Let's sit down and eat some pie. The walk made me very hungry." While they were eating their pie, the widow Wanda came back to Samuel's house and cut a face in her pumpkin and took it home. She put it in her closet. "I'll put it in my window tomorrow night to surprise Samuel, and Aloicious," she thought. She was making gingerbread and spiced tea when she heard Aloicious and Samuel banging on her front door. "Goodness," she said as she opened the door. "What in the world is the matter?" They were both out of breath. "Something funny is going on around here," puffed Samuel. "Samuel put a pumpkin on his front porch, and when we came home from taking a walk, there were 2 pumpkins," said Aloicious. "And when we got back from my house, there was only 1. Aloicious and Samuel looked scared. The widow laughed. "Lots of strange things happened around Halloween. Did you see any pigwidgeon tracks?" "Pigwidgeons?" yelped Aloicious. "What are those?" "Oh," said the widow as she poured some lemon sauce on the gingerbread. "They're little fairies that run around with goblins." "I never heard of such a thing," said Samuel. "Neither have I," said Aloicious. "Well, now you've learned something," said the widow as she put the gingerbread on a shelf. Samuel and Aloicious looked puzzled. "We don't believe in fairies and things," growled Aloicious. "Well then, don't come to me with your spooky pumpkin stories," the widow smiled. "I'm getting treats ready for tomorrow night. Have you made your costumes yet?" "No," said Aloicious. "We're going home now and make them." Widow Wanda laughed. "Look out for the pigwidgeons." "Pish fiddle," said Aloicious as he and Samuel scampered home. The widow Wanda then made some cookies and candies for Halloween treats. "I think I'll play a joke on them tomorrow," she said to herself. "Then we can have a ghost party down there." Just about dark the next day, the widow got a candle and a match and put them with her pumpkin in a big paper sack. Then she dressed up in a sheet and carried the pumpkin to Aloicious's house. She hid it under his steps, then knocked on his door. "Trick or treat," she said. Aloicious had on a sheet, too. "Let's go scare Samuel," he said. "Look, he's got a lighted candle in his pumpkin." Sure enough, a light was flickering behind the pumpkin's face. The big old harvest moon was peeping over the trees and making long black shadows behind them. "Oh, what a beautiful night," said the widow. "If I were a pigwidgeon, I'd dance all night. I do hope they won't be up to any mischief later on." "Trick or treat," they said when Samuel answered the door. "Oh, come in," said Samuel. He had cut eye-holes in a paper bag for his mask. "I didn't make any treats," he said to the widow, "because you said you were making them." "Never mind," she said. "You and Aloicious stay here, and I'll go get the cookies." She left the two of them in Samuel's living room and ran back to Aloicious's house. She got out the pumpkin and lit the candle inside. Then she ran to Samuel's house. "Look," she said, pointing to the pumpkin grinning on Aloicious' front porch. "Before I could get home, somebody put out that pumpkin over there." "Yipes!" screamed Aloicious. "There really is something funny going on around here. I'm scared to go home." "I'm not afraid of a pumpkin," Samuel said. "Then you go get it," said the widow. "Bring it down to my house. We'll put it on the table and have a nice Halloween party." Aloicious and the widow scampered down the dark road to her house. Aloicious kept looking over his shoulder. "I wonder how that pumpkin got there," he said, when they were safely inside and setting the table. The widow laughed. "I think someone is just playing a Halloween trick." And then up in the corner we have a little joke. Two witches, and she says, "Go to your broom at once." The next page we have a health quiz. If you had measles, why should your pals not come to play with you? Why should you tell your father or mother about a sore or blister you discover when removing your socks? Why do some people wear dark glasses on a sunny day when snow is on the ground? Why is milk sold in sealed bottles or sealed cartons? Why should we not scratch a sore or scab? Why should we wash fresh fruit before eating it? What does the doctor do for babies and young children so they won't get smallpox, diphtheria, or polio? Why may it be dangerous to eat leaves or berries you find? Why should we not eat fruit before it has ripened? Why should we wash vegetables well, even if we are going to boil them in water? Why should we cut meat into tiny pieces before eating it? Why should older persons never tell a little child that medicine is candy? Something larger. Each of the following belongs to something larger. What is it? Caboose. Animal's tail. Tail lights? Radiator. Animal's head. Exhaust pipe. Spare tire. Headlight. Locomotive. Outboard motor. Windshield. Rudder. Handlebars. Windshield wipers. Gas tank. Propeller. Which are at the rear? Which at the front? When our teacher asked us today if we helped our mothers, I was glad I could tell her that I did. Little Boy Blue. Little Boy Blue, come blow your horn. The sheep's in the meadow, the cow's in the corn. Where's the little boy who looks after the sheep? He's under the haystack, fast asleep. Little Miss Muffet sat on a tuffet, eating of curds and whey. There came a big spider who sat down beside her and frightened Miss Muffet away. Little Jack Horner sat in a corner eating his Christmas pie. He put in his thumb and pulled out a plum and said, "What a good boy am I." Rub-a-dub-dub, 3 men in a tub. And who do you think they be? The butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker. Turn 'em out, knaves, all three. There are at least 7 differences in the 2 pictures. How many can you find? Should we look for them? Maybe not. What if I can't find them? Her name in cursive. She's wearing a coat. Her bow. The clouds. The eraser. How many is that? I don't know. Tricks and teasers. These are just a bunch of little games and things you can make. It's funny that they have a little boat made out of a carton. Not much milk is sold that way, I don't think. Well, I guess now oat milk and almond milk and things come in cartons. page we have Columbus's ships. Hidden pictures. In this big picture, find the fan, nail, axe, carrot, candle, fish, bouquet, caterpillar, and feather. And then up at the top, it's the pictures that are hidden on the next page. And then we have a jack-o'-lantern bonus. You can get an unexpected treat from the leftovers after you've made a jack-o'-lantern for your porch or window. Save the pumpkin seeds, put them in a strainer, and rinse them with warm water in the kitchen sink. Let the pumpkin seeds dry on paper towels. Then spread the seeds on a cookie sheet and sprinkle them lightly with salt. Bake the seeds in a 225-degree oven until they are crisp, but not brown. This should take about an hour. Eat the seeds as soon as they've cooled, or store them in a jar with a tight lid. I like to do this every year myself, and I season them with Tony's Creole seasoning. It's really good. Scarecrow bag puppet. Stuff a small paper bag half full of paper. Twist and tape the bag shut. This is the head. Cut features from paper and glue them on. Use a larger bag for the body. Roll a piece of brown paper into a tube. Use this for the arms. Cut an X in each side of the bag and push the arms through. Glue the arms in place. Make a small cut in the bottom of the bag and push and glue the head into this. Make straw from thin strips of yellow construction paper. Glue this into the arms, around the neck, and on the head as hair. Cut patches from paper and glue to the body. Lisa the cheetah. Lisa began life as a wild cheetah and was orphaned when only a few weeks old. Poachers killed her mother to sell the skin for making a fur coat. Soon after, some people found the tiny, starving cub and took her to a nearby tourist hotel to be cared for. The hotel manager, Skip Levitt, and his young daughter, Putney, took good care of Lisa. She grew healthy and strong. Like other little cheetah cubs, Lisa was black, with a long blue-gray mane on her neck and back. But as the weeks passed, her color gradually turned to a golden brown with black spots, and the mane began to disappear. Lisa looked more like a cheetah. Lisa was very playful and loved to chase people and pounce on their heels as they ran. When playing with children, Lisa jumped and grabbed them gently by the back of the neck in the same way a wild cheetah catches its prey. Play is good practice for becoming an adult. Wild cheetah cubs play by chasing and wrestling and climbing trees. Half-grown cubs often chase small animals, but rarely catch them. Hunting success improves as the cubs become nearly full-grown at about 16 months old, but they never become really skillful until they separate from their mother and are forced to feed themselves. When Lisa was given to us for return to the wild, she was already 20 months old. As a young adult, she was more than old enough to take care of herself. The only problem was that Lisa lacked the experience of a normal wild cheetah, so we began by setting up a camp for Lisa and ourselves far away from other people. We let Lisa roam free, but with a radio collar so we would not lose her. Lisa depended on people and loved and trusted them very much. When we were camping, she stayed close to us and purred loudly all the time. If we tried to leave her alone, the purring stopped and fear showed on her face as she searched for us. When she found us, she lay nearby and happily purred again. The first night that we camped with Lisa, we zipped our tent closed at bedtime and tried to make her stay outside. But several hours later, the distant roaring of lions and howling of hyenas made Lisa very frightened. She tried to push her way into our tent. When we unzipped the door, she rushed in and lay down between us. All night long she lay there and purred loudly. Every morning and evening we took Lisa for a walk to acquaint her with the area and to give her an opportunity to catch prey. Lisa would not go alone because she was afraid to leave us. Although she was interested in other animals and sometimes chased them, she did not catch any. So Lisa did what was easiest. She ate the prey that other cheetahs caught. Sometimes she found the meat lying abandoned after other cheetahs finished eating, and other times she ran after cheetahs and took their food from them. Whenever Lisa found meat, she grabbed it and pretended to be catching her prey. We wondered how long it would be before Lisa caught her own prey. It was not long at all, for one day a gazelle was lying unaware. Lisa saw it and instantly ran and pounced, biting at the throat until the struggling ceased. With great satisfaction, she ate until her belly bulged, and then she lay down to rest. Lisa gained much confidence after killing the gazelle. Suddenly, she seemed not to need us as much anymore. She began traveling for miles and staying away overnight. We saw her only once every few days, and each time she appeared very well fed. Lisa no longer came to us, so we just watched from a distance. We did not call to her or try to pet her anymore because we wanted her to be like a wild cheetah. At certain seasons of the year, wild cheetahs must travel 30 miles or more to follow their migratory prey. Sometimes cheetahs move barely 100 yards a day, and other times several miles per day. Lisa probably will travel like this too. As far as we know, Lisa had no brothers or sisters, but occasionally cheetahs have as many as 5 or 6 cubs in a litter. During the cubs' first several weeks, the mother cheetah hides them under bushes or in tall grass. Thereafter, when the cubs can walk and run well, they lie with their mother out in the open. Cheetahs are the fastest known land mammals, and it is believed that they can sprint at the rate of 70 miles per hour for several hundred yards. But cheetahs become tired very quickly, and if they fail to catch their prey within that distance, they must give up the chase. Because their endurance is so short, cheetahs often must stalk close to the prey before beginning the chase. Or cheetahs may lie in wait for many hours until the prey animal, unaware of the predator's presence, walks too close. Then the cheetah easily catches its meal. Cheetahs like to lie on high places, such as rocks and termite mounds. This enables them to keep watch for danger from other predators, such as lions, leopards, and hyenas. From these viewpoints, cheetahs also keep watch for other cheetahs and likely prey. Unlike lions, cheetahs seldom gather in large groups. Normally they are solitary. Whenever several cheetahs are seen together, they are usually a mother and cubs, or they may be several grown-up brothers and sisters still together after their mother has left them. More often, the brothers stay together for several years, but each of the sisters soon goes off to live alone until she has her new cubs of her own. We spend much time driving across the plains and through the woodlands in search of cheetahs, and we are always pleased to find individuals that we have seen before. We know some wild cheetahs very well because we have seen them many times over several years. But the cheetah we are always happiest to see is Lisa, the tame cheetah we helped return to the wild. Next, we have a section for wee folks. Which of these grow on a vine? Which grow underground? Which grow on a tree? This is a cute little illustration. I love vintage art of vegetables and kitchen things. And then we have point to the things worn on your head, on your feet, on your hands. Which are things to eat? Which are things to wear? Science letters. Answered by Osmond P. Breland, Professor of Zoology, University of Texas. In order to give you the best possible answers to your questions about science, I often send them to scientists who know more about them than I. I have seen on TV that a special breed of wasps likes to sting bees. Why do they do that? We all know that wasps and bees can sting people. There are also some wasps that sting bees. Some of the wasps that sting bees are called velvet ants. They are called velvet ants because they have long colored hairs on their bodies that look like velvet. Also, some of them do not have wings, and they look like ants. The insects are also called cow ants because some people believe their stings can kill a cow. They do have a painful sting, but the sting will not kill a cow. Many of these insects are red and black in color. Some of these velvet ants capture and sting honeybees, which they use for food. Sometimes they kill the bees by biting. There are also a few wasps that capture honeybees for their youngsters to feed on. Each wasp digs a hole in the ground, then it captures and stings honeybees. Then it puts the honeybees in the hole it has dug and lays an egg on one of them. The egg hatches into a little wasp, grub, which eats the honeybees, grows, and changes into another wasp. These wasps do not have any common name, but I guess we could call them honeybee wasps. I doubt that there is any insect which does not have some other insect as an enemy. I am very interested in chameleons. I would like to know how chameleons change their color, and also when they shed their skin. A chameleon is a special kind of lizard. It is different from other lizards. It has big eyes and a long tongue with which it catches insects to eat. It also has a tail that can hold onto branches, and it has a body of a different shape than other lizards. As you know, a chameleon can change the color of its body. There are no true chameleons in the United States, but there are some lizards that can change the color of their bodies. For this reason, these lizards are called the American chameleons. They are also called anoles. These lizards can change from green to brown or from brown to green. Chameleons and other lizards can change colors because of some color cells they have in their skins. The color is changed because these color change cells change size and shape. We do not know everything that causes lizards to change their color. One thing that helps is that the lizard sees, is what the lizard sees. Other things are how the lizard feels and whether it is hot or cold. Neither chameleons nor any other lizards are always the same color as the stuff they are sitting on. The American chameleon feeds on insects. As it grows, it sheds its skin from time to time. If it gets lots of food, it sheds its skin more often. Anoles, or American chameleons, are found where there are many vines, plants, and flowers. They can find lots of insects to eat in places like this, and they sometimes climb bushes and trees. Then we have this little illustration. Child to river. Where did you come from? River. Maybe you could say that I came from the ocean. The warmth of the sun changed ocean water into water vapor in the air. The air was carried by winds. When the air was cooled, its water vapor changed into clouds and fell on land as rain. The rainwater trickled down the hills to make creeks, and the creeks ran together to make me a river. I am hurrying back to the ocean to start that all over again. The Forgotten Horse. In the crowded heart of that big old city, there was no place for a real horse. But in the run-down square where men and women sat under the trees and children played on the tired grass, a bronze horse pranced, his neck arched proudly, his long tail stretched out as if wind-blown, and on his back rode a long-forgotten mounted police officer. When the city was young, the police rode horses instead of motorcycles. This statue had been built in their honor. David liked the statue. He called the horse Fleetfoot and often stopped nearby to dream and wish. But this day he stopped with a new interest. This day a man from the city government had told the class about litter in the parks. The man had asked each one of them to choose some small piece to watch over during summer vacation. David wished he were a mounted police officer, but more than that, he wished he could ride a horse like Fleetfoot. David also wished that the pigeons would roost elsewhere. Suddenly, he had an exciting idea. He must tell Ben, his best friend. "I'm going to clean Fleetfoot," he declared. "He is stained and dirty, and the city hasn't enough money to clean the park statues." "Another anti-pollution idea?" Ben asked. "But that statue is pretty high up. How can you reach it all?" David hadn't thought about that. The next day, David borrowed his parents' cleaning bucket, a brush, and a cup of cleaning powder. All afternoon he scrubbed the base of the statue while he planned how he would reach the high places. Then he brought a box to stand on. When he needed 2 boxes, he found it hard to get the bucket of water up too. Ben sometimes helped him with a piece of rope, which David found in an alley. "I'm almost up to the feet," David told his mother. "Fleetfoot is standing on 3 feet and holding the other high. I think he is trotting." "You won't fall, will you?" his mother asked worriedly. She was glad he had found something to do now that school was out. "I'm careful," David assured her. He wondered if he would need 3 boxes soon. When he reached the flat part, which represented the ground where the horse stood, he found a great deal of cleaning to do and a lot of litter to take away. If he didn't love beautiful Fleetfoot so much, he would surely give up the whole thing, he thought. Mr. Williams, a friendly police officer, walked by. "Busy?" he asked. "Yes, I'm cleaning Fleetfoot," David said. "The man from the park department said we should find a project this summer." "Well, it's about time someone cleaned this statue," Mr. Williams said. "Did you ever see a mounted police officer on a real horse?" David asked. "Yes, there are still a few left, but they surely have neglected their statue. You are doing a good job, young man." Soon, David had to stack 4 boxes. By the time he got up the bucket, the brush, and himself, he was a bit shaky. The boxes wobbled, too. He stood on the flat place around the horse's feet and reached as high as he dared. Finally, he wrapped the rope around Fleetfoot's neck and clung to it with one hand while he scrubbed with the other. After a while, he felt so tired he decided to stop. That's when he got careless. He groped with his foot backward and downward, trying to find the top box. Somehow, he gave a little shove. Over went the stack of boxes, leaving him trapped. He waited. No one paid any attention to him. Ben had said he would not come that day. People didn't stop to ask questions anymore. Mr. Williams passed along on the far side of the street, and David waved frantically. For a minute, Mr. Williams stopped, returned the wave, and then went on, probably on a mission down the street. Time passed. David decided to try swinging down on the rope, even though it was short and worn. He wrapped it around the horse's foot and attempted to tie it securely, with as little of the length as possible. He tugged at the knot to be sure it would hold. Suddenly, it slipped. He grabbed for the upraised foot to steady himself and, at that moment, dropped the rope. It fell to the concrete walk below. Now, indeed, he was stranded. No use to cry for help. No one would hear or pay any attention. He sat down and leaned against Fleetfoot's leg to think. Just then, he heard the most unusual and astonishing sound. Surely he must be dreaming. There it was again. Clip-clop, clip-clop. It was the tapping of a horse's hooves on pavement. He peeked under Fleetfoot's middle and saw a real horse ridden by a mounted police officer. "Want a lift, young man?" the officer asked as he rode up close to the statue. Then he eased David down onto the horse's neck, just in front of the saddle. "Hang on now." Around the block they trotted, while David bounced and laughed so hard he thought he was crying. Back in the square, they pranced to meet the broadly smiling Mr. Williams. "I thought you needed help," he said, "so I called the best, our mounted squad." Next day, some of the police officers brought a ladder, and David climbed to the top where he could scrub Fleetfoot's face and mane. The officers also helped with other hard-to-reach places. A picture of David riding a police horse was printed in all the city newspapers with a story about neglected statues. Now, 2 mounted police include the square in their weekly rounds. Sometimes one of them boosts David up on his horse for a ride around the block. Fleetfoot proudly ignores it all. Then we have jokes, selected by our readers. Optometrist. "Eyes checked?" Betsy. "No, sir, they're blue." Diner. "Waiter, how come there aren't any apples in my apple pie?" Waiter. "Well, sir, would you expect to find a dog in a dog biscuit?" Jerry. "Why don't you have a speedometer in your car?" Terry. "Who needs a speedometer? When I go 20 miles per hour, the fender rattles. At 30 miles, the doors rattle. And at 40 miles, I rattle." Man at a fish market. Please throw me 5 of your biggest trout. Fish dealer. Throw them? Why? Man. So I can tell my family I caught them. Judge. Have you ever appeared as a witness before? Tom. Yes, Your Honor. Judge. In what suit? Tom. My gray flannel. Next we have Goofus and Gallant. I was a highlight subscriber as a child, and I think SpongeBob premiered when I was around 7, I think. And the Goofus and Gallant always reminded me of the SpongeBob training video. There we go. Goofus says, "A man came to see you while you were gone. I forgot to ask him his name." And Gallant says, "Here is the name and telephone number of the person who phoned, Mother." Goofus says, "Dad, you forgot to remind me about the picnic." Gallant says, "I must write down the date of my appointment." Goofus says, "I thought Goofus was going to play with us, but he hasn't shown up." I guess he didn't say it, but it's about him. Gallant says, "I'd like to stay, Bill, but I promised Jane I'd play tennis with her at 3. Next we have Shackleton and his shipwrecked sailors, a true story. Not a single person lives on Elephant Island now. It's near the Antarctic Peninsula and has steep cliffs covered with ice and snow all year. But once, way back in 1915, a group of shipwrecked sailors spent a winter there. It wasn't their first adventure. They had started with Sir Ernest Shackleton, the British polar explorer, to cross the Antarctic continent. This had never been done before. Of course, back then, they would use dog teams and sledges, and they hoped to get started during the summer months, which are from December 21st to March 21st south of the equator. There wasn't much warm weather near the South Pole, and their ship, Endurance, became stuck in the ice in January. The men killed seals to use for food for themselves and their dogs. Blubber from the seals was used as fuel for the stoves. The dogs were kept leashed on an ice floe next to the ship. The men exercised them and trained them to pull the sledges. They wanted to be all ready to cross the continent as soon as the ice broke up. When they weren't busy with the dogs or on duty on the ship, the men played hockey and football on the ice floe. The sun disappeared below the horizon on the 1st of May and didn't show up again until the end of July. As the days became warmer, the ice began to melt and crack. The dogs had to be moved back to the ship. Watchmen were on duty to look for an open lane in the ice through which the Endurance could move. But then the thick ice floes crushed against the ship and caused a leak. There was so much compression that huge pieces of ice weighing many tons were tossed into the air, and the Endurance kept on leaking and leaning on its side. At the end of October, Shackleton gave orders to abandon ship. The men moved supplies to an ice floe close to the ship and pitched camp there. There were 27 men beside their leader, and they had 5 tents. The dogs were there too. The cook had a storehouse and galley made from the ship's wheelhouse, which had been dragged on a sledge to the ice floe. This kitchen was covered by sails for protection from the weather. Most of the meals consisted of seal or penguin meat, either boiled or fried. The men ate in the tents, and one person from each tent took turns carrying the meals from the galley. The ice floe drifted with the winds about 2 miles a day. Altogether, the men were on it for 3 months. With the coming of summer, about Christmas time, the old floe began to melt, and the men moved their equipment to a younger and safer floe. Men and dogs pulled the lifeboats and sledges to the safer region. Fuel was becoming scarce. The men melted the ice in tins against their bodies for drinking water. The dogs had to be used for food. By April, the men had drifted northward far enough so that they could see the white peaks of Elephant Island 60 miles away. Shackleton decided that they should launch their 3 lifeboats and try to sail for it. No ship had ever landed there before. The name Elephant Island made Shackleton think of the huge elephant seals that lived there. He hoped to leave most of his men on Elephant Island while he went farther on for help. So the 3 little lifeboats, each 20 feet long, were launched. As much equipment as possible was taken. Sails and oars were used to propel the boats toward the island. At night, the men pulled their boats up the ice floes where they camped. These were the first men ever known to have landed on steep, slippery Elephant Island. The wet, rocky beach was not safe from the high tides. When Shackleton saw a group of penguins entering the water to migrate north, he moved his camp to the penguin rookery. He knew that would be safe from the high water. The men were glad to be on land again, even in such an inhospitable place. When Shackleton was sure they were safely settled, he took off in one of the boats with 5 men toward South Georgia Island, 800 miles away. He knew there was no chance of the men being rescued on Elephant Island. No one would think of looking for them there. Shackleton told the men to stay on the island until spring. If he had not returned by then, they should get into their 2 boats and head toward another island where there was a whaling station. After Shackleton had left, the men built a hut on Elephant Island. They gathered large, flat stones and erected 2 walls 19 feet apart. The stones were chinked with snow. When the 2 boats were laid side by side on top of them and lashed down to the rocks, they were covered with pieces of tent that had been torn off, and a couple of overlapping blankets were used for the door. Other pieces of tent covered the rocks on the floor. All of the men slept in this hut. Every day that the weather was clear, seals and penguins were collected for food. When Shackleton and his 5 men finally landed at South Georgia Island, it was necessary for them to cross a glacier-covered mountain range before they reached the little settlement where they found help. 3 different relief ships that tried to reach Elephant Island were unsuccessful because of the ice. Finally, a 4th found the ice around the island to be open, and the ship was able to find land. Within an hour, all of the men were off the island and heading towards civilization. Sir Ernest Shackleton had been responsible for the safety of all these men. He did not lose a single one. Then we have a little owl matching game at the bottom. Sammy Spivens. Hello there. What gives? Asked Sammy as he settled down in my study. I was just thinking, I said, that this world is full of all sorts of people. Because we love our children, we want them to form good habits, and to get rid of no-no habits. Tell me about the guys with the no-no habits, said Sammy. I thought you would never ask, I said. First of all, who likes grumpies? Who likes those who always want things their way? So don't be a pusher or a pesterer. Don't stomp around like a goop. Don't be a shover if you can't have your own way. Don't be a giggle guy and make fun of others, or a greedy guy who always grabs the largest piece of cake. Who wants to grow up to be a grabber, a pusher? Let's be givers and helpers. How about helping others? I shall bank on you to be a good citizen. Do not be like those who always like things their own way. So you will not pester, push, or be like those giggle guys that push and shove everywhere they go. They are pretty goofish, and they always take the biggest piece of cake. Who wants to grow up to be a snatcher or a grabber? Why not be like Yanko, little magic man of the woodlands? How he loves buds and blossoms and birds and children. In short, don't be an all-around goop. Try to form good habits so that we may expect a generation who can have good habits. They will not be pushers or complainers or stompers. They will not be selfish citizens but helpful people. They will not make fun of others. They will seek to help all those around them. You see, I said, that if you learn to be a good citizen when you are young, you will be a wow of a good citizen when you grow up. Much love, Aunt Dorothy. Then we have a Halloween counting poem. One scary witch is coming down the street. She's tapping at doors and calling, trick or treat. 2 black cats appear at the gate. With arched up backs, they watch and wait. 3 jack-o'-lanterns sit grinning in a row. Their candles flicker an eerie glow. 4 bats awake and begin to fly, swishing and swooping across the sky. 5 tree stumps in the shadows deep crouch like monsters ready to leap. 6 orange leaves float through the air. They rustle and whisper, "Beware, beware." 7 gray clouds slide the moon from sight. They stop, they hover, they darken the night. 8 white objects twist and twine. Are they ghosts or sheets on a line? 9 little field mice scatter and run. Spooky nights are not much fun. 10 owls smile. They know, you see, it's Halloween, and the witch is me. The Rainbow-Colored Mountain. It was nearly supper time when Julie got home from her Aunt Sue's house one Friday afternoon. She found a letter for her. "Dear Julie, come to my house this Saturday. Mark, Janet, Lucy, Tim, and Bob are invited too. Come see the pink, orange, purple, green, and yellow mountain. Love, Sally." Julie showed her sister Karen the letter. "How can a mountain have so many colors?" she asked. "Maybe it is a mountain in a picture," Karen guessed. "Maybe," said Julie, but she hoped Karen was wrong. Her father was in the kitchen making hamburgers. "Dad, how can a mountain fit inside Sally's house?" "A mountain in her house?" Dad flipped a hamburger. "There are no mountains here in Florida. Maybe she made a clay model." "Maybe," agreed Julie, but she hoped her father was wrong. She found her mother in the garage. "Hey, Mom, what is a pink, orange, purple, green, and yellow mountain?" She read Sally's letter. "Maybe it is a riddle." "Maybe," said Julie, but she hoped her mother was wrong. Later, Julie said to herself, "If Sally can surprise Mark, Janet, Lucy, Tim, and Bob, and me, then I will make a surprise for Sally." So Julie called Sally on the telephone. "Guess what?" she said. "I am bringing a snowman to your house tomorrow." "A snowman? There's no snow in Florida," Sally replied. Julie giggled. "There are no mountains here either. Ha ha. Goodbye." Saturday morning, Julie's whole family helped make the surprise. Mom took a big round pan and a small round pan from the shelf. "Karen, you can sift the flour, salt, baking powder, and cocoa," Julie said. Julie got butter, eggs, and milk from the refrigerator. Dad measured the sugar and said, "I will mix the batter." They worked quickly to make 2 chocolate layer cakes. The small cake was the snowman's head, and the large cake made his body. Julie covered the snowman with white icing and coconut. 2 raisins for his eyes, said Mom, and Dad said, a red cherry for his nose. Karen sliced an orange peel for his mouth. "I will use peanuts for his buttons," decided Julie. She hid the snowman in a large cardboard box. When Sally opened her door, she asked, "Did your snowman melt?" Mark, Janet, Lucy, Tim, and Bob ran to the door. "Let's see the snowman. Let's see the mountain." Sally opened the box. "Oh, look, it is a snowman cake. Yum!" Then Sally's mother said, "Quick, look at the mountain before it disappears. It is in the dining room." Julie was first. On the table she saw the tallest mountain of ice cream in the world, made of pink, orange, purple, green, and yellow ice cream. "Oh, double yum! Yum, yum!" "The pink ice cream is strawberry," said Janet and Lucy. Tim grinned. "Orange is my favorite." "Purple is blackberry, I'll bet," said Mark. Bob tasted. "Lemon yellow." "But what is the green?" asked Julie. "It is mint," said Sally. Julie put a big scoop of mint ice cream on her piece of chocolate snowman cake. "I like surprises, especially when you get to eat them," said Sally. And Julie replied, "But best of all is sharing a surprise with your friends." Silent letters. Each pictured word has a silent letter. Use the silent letters in each group to make a word that answers the question. And there are lots of little games to play. Words with syllables that rhyme. Say these words aloud. Notice that the syllables in each word rhyme. Name as many more such words as you can. Hubbub, bigwig, helter-skelter, hurry-scurry, hocus-pocus, pow-wow. The sound of J. Can you find 5 things in the picture that begin with the sound of J? And now can you find 5 more? CR and CL blends. Say the name of each pictured thing. Some begin with the KL sound. Some begin with the KR sound. Are there more KL words or more KR words? Cloud, clown, crown, crayon, clover, cricket, clock, crib, crocodile. The bears support UNICEF. Such nice costumes you made. I like the one you made me, Poozy. Last year, Zooey was a witch, and Poe's sister was an elephant. We will get a lot of candy. I'm collecting for UNICEF. Guess I will too. May I help? UNICEF helps children all over the world. Our teacher says they send medicine and start hospitals. And UNICEF helps feed hungry children in other lands. I'm glad I can help. Louie Armstrong. The black man with the wonderful smile finished singing, mopped his forehead with a huge white handkerchief, raised the gleaming trumpet to his lips, and played. The music was jazz. It was exciting and happy music, and soon everyone was smiling and feeling good, clapping and swaying to the rhythm. He finished playing, and the crowd roared and applauded. Once again, he treated them to that famous smile, and they went wild, clapping and stamping their feet. They loved this man. That was Louie Armstrong, one of the most famous and best-loved jazz musicians of all time. Armstrong did a great deal to popularize this type of music. Jazz was created by Black Americans from African drum beats, work songs, blues, spirituals, and especially the lively marching band tunes so popular right after the Civil War. Some is sad, some has a happy sound, and all of it has a powerful and exciting beat. The cradle city of jazz was New Orleans. Louie Armstrong was born there on July 4th, 1900. His family was very poor. His parents separated when Louie was very young, and sometimes he had to live with his grandmother. He loved music from a very early age and would follow street bands at parades and even funerals just to hear the music. Louie and the other children would clap their hands, sing, and run along behind the marching musicians. On New Year's Eve, when he was 12, he and his friends were having fun shooting a small gun. Louie had brought his own gun and shot it off. It made such a big noise that it scared everybody, and suddenly Louie found himself in the arms of a tall policeman. He felt very sorry and said that he didn't mean any harm, but Louie's pleading didn't help. He was sent to the Colored Waif's home, a place for black children who got into trouble. It turned out to be not such a bad place after all. There were no bars or fences, and it was more like a strict school than a prison. Then a wonderful thing happened. One of the teachers that Louie liked a lot was a music teacher named Mr. Davis, who had formed a band in the school. Louie behaved himself very well, and was soon asked to join the band. Mr. Davis gave him bugle and cornet lessons, and the boy had never been happier. He learned quickly and was soon made the leader. Louie finally left the home after a year and a half and went to live with his father. He missed the home and Mr. Davis, but he especially missed playing the cornet. Because the family was so poor, he had to go right out and earn some money, doing odd jobs like helping a junk man and shoveling coal. He managed to save enough money to buy a battered old cornet. He began to practice and listen to music every chance he got. His hero was a cornet player named Joe King Oliver, who played in Kid Ory's band. This band played in honky-tonks, at parades, funerals, picnics, and parties. He followed the band everywhere just to hear them play. Joe Oliver got to know him and started giving him lessons. Louie got his first real job playing when he was 16, working for whatever money the customers threw him. Soon he was earning more and more as he steadily improved. One day, Joe said he was going to take a job far away in Chicago. Louie was sad, but King Ory invited him to take Joe Oliver's place in his band. He couldn't believe it. Take King Oliver's place? But somehow it turned out to be easier than he had thought, and in very little time he was playing as well as anyone in the band. He also began to play with Fate Marable on the riverboats that went up and down the Mississippi. With the Marable Band, he first learned how to read music well, and also got the chance to play jazz for many who had never heard it before. Louie was becoming known as the best player around New Orleans. In 1922, he received a telegram from Papa Joe, as he called him, Oliver, in Chicago, asking him to join the band. Although Louie had doubts about being good enough, he packed his bag and left that very night for Chicago. The band was called King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band, and it was the most popular band on Chicago's South Side. Lil Hardin was the band's piano player, and she helped Louie with the arrangements and even taught him about classical music. He was becoming better and better at making up his own musical phrases and breaks. They were so good that other musicians began copying them. Louie's first records were made with the Creole Jazz Band, and more people could then hear his wonderful jazz music right in their homes. Louie was very friendly, and his kindness to others made everyone love him. Lil Hardin, or is it Hardin? I'm sorry, I don't know. Was no exception, and Louie loved her too. They were married in 1924. At Lil's urging, he left Oliver's band, and shortly began to play with another famous band leader, Fletcher Henderson, in New York. Louie began singing a lot in his hoarse, gravelly voice. People loved it. Also at this time, Louie switched from cornet to the more popular trumpet. Now it was time for him to get his own band, and some of the best music he ever played was recorded during this period. Satchmo, short for Satchelmouth, did all sorts of new musical things. One day, at a recording session, he dropped his music. He couldn't remember the words, so he sang doo-did-da, dee-dee-la-da. Everybody liked the way it sounded, so they left it in the recording. This idea of scat singing was copied by Bing Crosby and many other singers. He began traveling all over with his band. Music was his whole life. Lil got tired of being alone all the time. They were divorced, but they always stayed very good friends. At the end of the Second World War, Louie traveled to Europe and Africa. Americans soon realized that he was a fine ambassador to the world. Ambassador Satchmo, he was called, because the people in the countries he visited were so warmed by his big smile and wonderful personality. He did a great deal in making friends for this country. After all these hard-working years, people were beginning to ask if he wasn't ready to retire. Not Louie. He did 2 more tours of Europe, and, when he was in his 60s, recorded Hello Dolly, which was so successful that over 1 million copies were sold. On his 70th birthday, a great tribute was paid to Satchmo. A number of jazz clubs had a birthday celebration. Many famous singers and musicians came and performed in his honor. There was a huge cake, and everyone acknowledged that he was truly the king of jazz. Louie Armstrong died 1 year later, but the world will never forget Ambassador Satchmo, who did so much to make people happy and bring the people of the world closer together. Konane, Hawaiian checkers. Everyone has heard of checkers and Chinese checkers, but what about Hawaiian checkers? Here's how you play Hawaiian checkers, or konane. First, you need a square board about the size of a record album. You can also play on a bare spot on the ground or a sidewalk. If you have a board, make 64 holes in it, 8 rows of 8 holes each. If you are playing on the ground or the sidewalk, make 64 squares. Now you have to look for the stones. You need 32 black or dark ones, and 32 white or very light colored ones. They should be about the size of marbles. Place all of the stones in the holes. First a black one, then a white one, and so on. Begin the second row with a white stone and continue to alternate the colors. 2 players play Hawaiian checkers. To start, you pick up 1 white stone and 1 black stone from the middle of the playing board. Then you put your hands behind your back and shuffle the stones back and forth between your hands to confuse your friend. Then hold them out, 1 in each fist, and you have your friend guess which color is in your hand. If the guess is correct, your friend starts. If not, you start. The 2 stones used for deciding who goes first are laid aside. The player who starts always starts with the black stones and keeps on playing the black ones throughout the game. To start, pick up a black stone and jump it over a white one into an empty space. Then pick up the white stone which has been jumped. A jump can be in any direction as long as it is in a straight line, not diagonal. A player may jump more than 1 opposing stone if all the jumps are in a straight line. You cannot change directions in the middle of your turn. Continue until you can jump no longer with that stone. As the game goes on and you take more and more of each other's stones, the chances to jump will get fewer and fewer. The first player who cannot make a jump loses. Why don't you choose a friend to play Konane with you right now? Why? Why is it that the cleaner and more tidy we keep a kitchen, the fewer flies, mice, ants, and roaches will be there? Why are the hind legs of a frog much larger and longer than its front legs? Why can you kill a fly more easily with a fly swatter than with a folded newspaper? Why may a horse move or stomp its feet more often on a warm summer day than on a very cold winter day? Why should we wash and keep clean the bowl from which we feed the puppy? Why may there be many mosquitoes near swamps and pools of water during warm weather? Do insects crawl over plants in the garden or sit on them just to rest or sun themselves? Why are they there? Why may your puppy do some trick for you that it would not do for anybody else? Why may a lawn roller be filled with water before it is rolled over the lawn to pack it down? There's something special about the city. City Squirrel saw an acorn across the street, but as he dashed out to get it, cars and trucks screeched to a stop and honked their horns at him angrily. He quickly ran back to the sidewalk. "Oh dear," he cried, trembling from the tops of his tiny pointed ears to the tip of his long bushy tail. "That was very careless of me, but I have not found an acorn all day, and I must store away food for the winter." A sparrow hopped by and said, "Why not come to the forest with me? There are no cars or trucks there." "I have been to the forest," said City Squirrel, "but I missed the city. There's something special about the city." "What?" asked the sparrow. "I do not know exactly," said City Squirrel, "but I like it here." "Goodbye, then," said the sparrow, and she flew away. City Squirrel hopped back to the park. A child was sitting on a bench with her mother. The child waved at City Squirrel. City Squirrel sat up on his hind legs and twitched his nose and flipped his tail. The child laughed. "What a cute squirrel," said the child's mother. That made City Squirrel feel good. Suddenly, he spotted a nut lying on the path. He rushed over to it, but it was only an empty peanut shell. "Oh dear," he sighed, "I have not found a bit of food for the winter." A rabbit hopped by and said, "Why not come to the country with me? There are lots of nuts there, and fruits and berries too." "I have been to the country," said City Squirrel, "but I missed the city. There's something special about the city." "What?" asked the rabbit. "I do not know exactly," said City Squirrel, "but I like it here." "Goodbye, then," said the rabbit, and he hopped away. City Squirrel was tired. He decided to rest before looking for food again. He climbed up to his home in the hollow of a tall old tree and curled up into a little furry ball. Just then some boys and girls came down the path. They sat beneath City Squirrel's tree and began to sing. Soon City Squirrel drifted off to sleep to the lovely sound of singing. When he woke up, the boys and girls were gone. The sun was setting. City Squirrel rushed down from his tree. He hopped past an old man sitting on a bench. The old man took a small paper bag out of his pocket. City Squirrel stopped. The old man put his hand into the bag. City Squirrel sat up on his hind legs and watched. The old man took something out of the bag and threw it on the path. City Squirrel twitched his nose and flipped his tail. "A peanut!" he cried. He rushed over to the path and picked it up. "Here is another one," smiled the old man. City Squirrel ate the first peanut. Then he carried the second one back to his home in the hollow of the tall old tree. When he hopped back to the bench, the old man had another peanut waiting for him, and another one after that, and another, and another, and another. "That is all for today," said the old man at last. City Squirrel had carried so many peanuts he could hardly climb his tree one last time to go to bed. A robin sat on a branch and said, "My, you look tired. Why not go away for a vacation as I do?" "Oh no," said City Squirrel. "I would miss the city. There's something special about the city." "What?" asked the robin. This time City Squirrel thought about it. He thought about the child who laughed at him, and the boys and girls who sang to him, and the old man who gave him peanuts. "The people," he cried happily. "It is the people who make the city special. I like it here." Getting ready to read. Look at each thing in the first group. Say the word under it. Find the same thing in the second group and say the word under it. Now find this word in the third group. Should I read them? I guess I will. Igloo, mop, shovel, camera. Shovel, igloo, camera. Mop, mop, camera. Igloo, shovel. Riddles. Selected by children 7 to 12 years of age. Once there was a dime and a nickel. The nickel rolled off the table. Why didn't the dime? It had more sense, was the answer. What is the best thing to put into an ice cream soda? A straw. What is the easiest thing to get into, but the hardest thing to get out of? Trouble. If 2 is company and 3 is a crowd, what are 4 and 5? 9. If you put 3 ducks into a box, what would you have? A box of quackers. Doesn't make any sense. Box of quackers. Okay. What has eyes like a cat, feet like a cat, but isn't a cat? A kitten. What is yellow, flies, and goes zub-zub? A bee flying backwards. Finger play. Here is the train, and here is the track. Choo-choo forward, choo-choo back. Here are the wheels going clackety-clack. Poof goes the smoke from the big smokestack. Thinking. Which have 1 or more seeds inside of them? Apple, potato, tomato, banana, beets, celery, peach, carrot, cherries. How would you give a friend half of the orange, half of the eggs, half of the pear, half of the milk? Is your name on a bus ticket, on a movie theater ticket, on an airplane ticket? Do you give your name when you buy a ticket on a bus? A ticket to a movie theater, to a circus, to a museum? Which of these eat food whenever they find it? Which store some foods to eat later? Rabbit, bird, rooster, chipmunk, squirrel, bee. Our own pages, and there's some little artworks by children that have been submitted. It's cute that they've included some witches for Halloween and pumpkins and things. I like the old bicycle. Quite cute. And I guess these are some poems by readers. Down, 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 yellow and brown, the leaves are falling all over town. Autumn leaves. Every autumn, rusty leaves in the trees come tumbling down, bumping into other leaves, upside down, right side up, curving, turning, kissing the ground. Fall. Fall leaves, birds, and trees, all part of the lovely woods, all part of fall. An apple tree. An apple tree is what I'd really like to be. I would like to be an apple tree because little children would like me and pick my apples and eat them too and say, "Oh, apple tree, I love you." Love. Love is everything. Love is flowers to hearts. Love is winter to spring. Yes, love is everything. Sunrise. Light peeks over a darkened hill, and soon the ray overtakes. The pinkish sheen lights the sky as the morning slowly wakes. Sun grows hotter as it glows, and dries the glossy dew. Soon the tired rooster crows. It's another day anew. Freddy Football. Hi, I'm Freddy Football. Being a football is a hard job because you get kicked and jumped on. Sometimes you get into the mud and get all dirty, but there are some fun parts too. I love it when the quarterback throws me up into the air and I get a good look at the crowd. Then the receiver catches me and the crowd cheers. I also like it when somebody runs with me for a touchdown, but the best part of all is getting into the Hall of Fame. My cat Sebastian. On the first day he was acting bad. We had company and we thought he had run out the door. We searched all around the neighborhood and I started crying. We came back home and I was crying. My mom said, "Let's buy a pup if we can't find the cat." And Sebastian heard and poked his head out and said, "Meow." He was behind the curtain. Jumpy the Frog. A little frog lived in a pond. His name was Jumpy because he liked to jump. There were no other frogs in the pond, so Jumpy was lonely. He was so lonesome that he went to another pond. There he found lots of frogs. These frogs wouldn't let him play with them. How sad Jumpy was. Then a boy came along and caught Jumpy. The boy put Jumpy into another pond, where he found 2 frogs that were friendly. Jumpy was so happy that he jumped across the pond. The other 2 frogs liked him, so they each gave him a fly to eat. Letters to the editor. There should be a holiday called Giving Day. On the day before Giving Day, a truck would go around the city. It would stop at each house with people who are fortunate enough to have candy and things like that. It would collect from each child and parent a toy, food, candy, or anything else. Then the truck, after it had gone to each house, would make rounds in that city and give some of the things that had been collected to people who were not so fortunate. If there were no unfortunate people in that city, the stuff in the truck could be given to another city. On Giving Day, each family would pretend they were unfortunate and have small meals and things like that. How can I make a holiday like that? Thank you for writing to us. Your suggestion about Giving Day sounds like a very good idea. Unfortunately, there are so many holidays that getting a new one started would be very difficult. I like recipes. Sometimes I look them up in a cookbook and sometimes in highlights. Most of the time when I get your book, I don't see recipes. Can you put more recipes in your book? Because our readers are of so many different ages and have so many different interests, we try to include a wide variety of different material. This is the reason why we do not include recipes in every issue. It helps us to hear from our readers and to know what they like best. We will try to include more recipes in future episodes. My love for pets keeps growing and growing. I am 9 years old and my mother says I can't have pets. What should I do? Many of our friends write and tell us that they cannot have the pet they choose. Some of our readers have parents or brothers or sisters who are allergic to certain pets. Others do not have a good place to keep animals. Sometimes keeping tropical fish has been a solution. If you really love pets, perhaps you will want to read all that you can about them. It may be that this is all you can do now. As you get older, you may find ways to be around pets, even when they are not your own. The Girl Who Felt Different. In Brooklyn, New York, in the days when there were no plastic bread bags and no television, there lived a little girl named Mary who liked to make things. She made colored paper birds to fly on the end of a bit of string, puppets and airplanes, blanket tents, and even a dollhouse from some empty cartons she found on the back porch. From popsicle sticks, she fashioned farmyard fences for her set of tiny animals, and she laughed for joy the day her brother Frank showed her how to make a rubber band guitar by stretching bands long ways around a wooden cheese box. One day, she thought of a way to make a book. After folding 2 sheets of drawing paper in half, she pinned them down the middle fold with straight pins from her mother's sewing basket. She ruled lines on each page except the first one that she saved for a cover picture and a title. She eyed her finished product with satisfaction. At last, she had a secret place to keep the stories locked inside her head. Stories about goblins and witches and elves, and about girls and boys very similar to her own brother and her 2 sisters and herself. Some stories concerned children who lived miles away in the lands she wanted to visit one day. One book would not hold them all. Of course she must make another, and another, and another. Luckily, the stack of drawing paper kept handy on the floor of her mother's closet seemed endless. Mary could make a new book whenever she needed one. The next time she tried a thicker book with more pages, but when she pricked her finger hard, she went back to folding 2 pages in half. Silly, you can buy a good copybook in Mr. Reuben's store for $0.25, her brother told her. One with lines already on every page. Mary shook her head. Don't have $0.25, and it would take 5 allowances to save that much. Anyway, this kind of book is free. With her stack of small notebooks carefully ruled for writing, plenty of sharp pencils with good erasers on their ends, and a box of crayons for pictures, Mary was never lonely, never bored. Whenever her friends were away or busy, whenever it rained too hard to go out, or whenever she was kept home from school with a sore throat, there were the notebooks waiting to be filled with stories. She began to make up lists of words that sounded nice, words like brink and rumble and scarlet, lime, plash, thump, words with soft sounds, nightfall and dew and moon, hard words too, brutal, grasp, cross, gargle, gruff. She had always liked to make pictures with crayons and paints, and she was discovering she could also paint with words. She tried to word paint the people she knew. She word painted old Mrs. Hornby with her lumpy figure and raspy voice, and her Dutch friend Marta with thick braids the color of butter. She word painted places especially, picture after picture of her grandfather's enormous old house in the country, and a farm she often dreamed about where all the animals were dogs. There was every kind of dog you could imagine on this farm, terriers and collies and beautiful golden Labrador retrievers. In words, Mary tried to capture the gleam of sunlight on water, the ants who foraged for food in a sidewalk crack, and many other things she saw each day. Once she saw a spider carrying her baby's piggyback. She put it into a word picture and kept it safely inside a notebook. She word pictured the things that happened. If a house in the neighborhood burned down, Mary wrote about it. She wrote about the fun of carving pumpkins at Halloween, and when bad things like the death of her puppy happened, she wrote about those too. Somehow, after she'd written it down on paper, she felt better. Mary did many things besides writing in her notebooks. She rode her bicycle and played hide-and-seek. In the summer she swam in a creek at her grandpa's place. Each winter she made snowmen and belly-flopped down the icy streets on her sled. But she craved those hours alone when she could write in her notebooks. She often wondered why she felt the urge to leave the games and go away by herself. Was she different from other children? Was something wrong with her? Her Aunt Jane said she was a dreamer, and her arithmetic teacher once said laughingly that Mary reminded her of a local subway train. "You take so long to do a good page of problems," she exclaimed. "Goodness, child, what are you thinking about?" But there was another teacher, Mrs. Wick, who noticed how much Mary liked to write. "The stories you turn in for English composition are good," she said. Shyly, Mary showed a few of her notebooks to Mrs. Wick. The following day, the teacher handed her a book about the life of Louisa Alcott, the author of Little Women and Little Men. That night before supper was on the table, Mary had read the entire book. It told how Louisa Alcott had begun scribbling her stories when she was only Mary's age. A shiver raced up and down Mary's backbone. "Then there are other children like me," she exclaimed softly. "I'm not the only one." She'd never thought about it before. How did grown-up authors get to be authors? First, many of them must have been children like herself scribbling in notebooks, and from that time on, she didn't feel so different after all. Mary grew up to write many books for children. Some of the ones she wrote are Walk in My Moccasins, A Snake Named Sam, and River School Detectives. One of her first published stories was Big Girl Now, printed in the November 1964 issue of Highlights for Children. She later wrote the article you are reading for all of the children who ask authors, "How did you get to be a writer?" What's wrong here? There's a little photo. Need to figure out what's wrong. Larger or smaller? Suppose the potato and the dough for rolls are put into the hot oven at the same time. Which will grow larger while baking? Which will grow smaller? Cover the cat, but not its tail, with your left thumb and see the picture change. Things to make. Halloween owl. To make this owl face, cut a large circle for the head from brown construction paper. To make eyes, cut 2 circles from black construction paper and paste onto 2 larger white circles. Cut a diamond shape from orange construction paper and fold it in half, forming a triangle for the beak. Cut large triangles from yellow construction paper. Paste all these shapes on a piece of bright construction paper and watch your shapes turn into an owl face. Branch goblins. Paint a small branch a bright color. Cut a head from a double thickness of heavy paper. Cover this with 1 layer of pasted paper. Slip the head on the branch and glue in place. Paint the face. Pumpkin place cards. Paint a buckeye, a horse chestnut, with orange tempera. Add a small piece of yarn for a stem. Make the face on the pumpkin with a black crayon, felt-tipped pen, or paint. Glue this to a small card. Add some shredded green paper or yarn for grass around the pumpkin. Paper bag jack-o'-lantern. Stuff a paper bag with paper. Twist and glue the top in a stem shape. Using tempera, paint the stem green and the jack-o'-lantern orange. Cut features from black paper and leaves from green paper. Glue in place. Halloween stick puppet. From black construction paper, cut a dress, arms, hat, and shoes for a witch. From pink construction paper, cut hands and a head to add to the body. Add a black nose, mouth, and eyes to the head. Use small strips of yellow tissue paper for the hair. After the witch is completed, paste to a stick to make a puppet. I think I would use green for the skin, personally. Jingle ghost. Cut a ghost shape from the side of a plastic bottle. Punch eyes in the ghost with a paper punch. With a needle and thread, poke a hole in the bottom of the ghost. String a small bell on the thread and tie the ends of the thread together. Hang several ghosts on strings where people walk during Halloween season. The wind will flutter the ghosts and the bells will jingle. Leaf shapes. Bring a little fall into your house. Collect several well-shaped leaves and trace them on brightly colored construction paper. Cut out the paper leaves and cut each down the middle vein. Place on black paper. Then cut 2 or 3 side veins and move the pieces apart just a bit to form a whole leaf, like a jigsaw puzzle. Do not cut too many parts. The black paper showing through will be the veins. Paste down the pieces. You can put several colors, sizes, and shapes on your black paper. Halloween rings. Start each ring by shaping a pipe cleaner so it will fit around your finger. Fasten the ends of the pipe cleaner together. On lightweight cardboard, draw pictures of each of the figures shown. Cut out each cardboard figure and glue it to a pipe cleaner ring band. Paint or color each figure and add details. Headwork. Can a truck sing? Do you have as many legs as a cat? Who drinks milk from a bottle? How can you see your ears? What do you do with a broom? Do trees come down from the sky? Where does food go when you swallow it? Which makes more noise when you chew it, mashed potatoes or celery? Where do most birds build their nests? Name as many colors as you can. Which color do you like best? If you took care of animals in a zoo, which animals would you like most to take care of? Is it easier to walk against the wind or to walk the way the wind is blowing? Suppose the electricity went off while you were at school. What problems would this cause? Suppose it were off in your home overnight. What problems might this cause? As Betty and Sharon walked past a house, Sharon said, "They must have twin babies in that house." She did not see the twins, but she saw something on the porch which caused her to say this. What was it? Which of these can breathe underwater? Fish, boy, frog, cat? If your dog disappeared and you searched for him for a long time without finding him, what would you do next? Of the following plants, which have thorns or prickers on them? Tomato, rose, cabbage, cucumber, blackberry. Are nights longer in summer or in winter? Are days colder in summer or in winter? "Oh dear," said Molly, "I have a complete set of wrenches, but none of them fits the bolt on my bicycle seat just right. How could this be?" In the middle of the night, John Keene awoke and said to his wife, "An airplane is flying very low over the house." How could he know this? Mr. Lee fixed a loose bolt in the handle of the lawnmower. Did he use a hammer, a wrench, or a screwdriver to fix it? The timber toes. The leaves were falling. "Let's jump into a pile," said Mabel. "Okay," called Tommy. "First we'll have to rake some." So Mabel and Tommy made a big pile. Mabel jumped first. "What fun! Let's get Ma so she can jump too." The winds came. "Don't worry, Ma. We'll make another pile."